He was kept out of sight, hidden in a back paddock where visitors would never see him. Not because he posed any danger or was difficult to manage, but because he represented an embarrassment, a living reminder that even the most careful breeding programs could sometimes produce surprising failures. 3 hands tall in the world of quarter-horse racing, this might as well have been a genetic flaw. His registered name was Tiny Perfect, which felt like a cruel joke since there was nothing perfect about a racehorse prospect who measured 5 inches shorter than every other 2-year-old on the property. For 43 years, the Double Bar Ranch in Elgin, Texas had bred champion quarter horses. Their graduates had won at tracks like Ruidoso Downs, Los Alamitos, and Remington Park. Horses bearing the Double Bar brand commanded 6-figure prices long before they ever reached a starting gate. They had a reputation to uphold, and then there was Tiny. Vincent Mallory, the ranch's head trainer, stood at the paddock fence on a hot June morning in 2017, watching the small bay gelding graze quietly in the shade. His assistant, a young woman named Leslie Crane, stood beside him with a clipboard. "The owners are arriving tomorrow," Vincent said. Leslie glanced at her notes. "His bloodlines are actually impressive. Sire is first down dash." Vincent cut her off. "It doesn't matter if his great-grandfather was a legend. You can't race height and you can't race pedigree. You race the horse in front of you. And that horse," he pointed at Tiny, "is too small." "So what should they do?" Vincent sighed. "Contact Benson's auction house. Tell them we'll have one for the September sale. Maybe some weekend rider will take him for trails or light work." Leslie made a note but stayed by the fence. She had been observing Tiny for 3 months, ever since she started at Double Bar, and something about him intrigued her. It wasn't a bad feeling, but one she couldn't quite define. The other horses on the ranch were magnificent yet restless, always moving, always burning nervous energy. Tiny was different. He possessed a stillness, a patience that seemed almost intentional, as if he was conserving something, saving it for later. "Leslie," Vincent called from halfway to the barn. She followed but looked back once. Tiny had lifted his head and was watching her with dark, intelligent eyes, not pleading, not desperate, just waiting. The mistake had occurred 18 months earlier during breeding season. Double Bar's premier mare, a stakes-winning daughter of Corona cartel named Dash of Perfection, had been scheduled to breed with their top stallion. But in the chaos of a busy season, the breeding records were mixed up. Instead of the planned match, Dash of Perfection was bred to a younger, unproven stallion named First Down Dash. By the time anyone noticed the error, it was too late. The mare was confirmed in foal. The ranch manager, Sally Davis, wanted to terminate the pregnancy. "We can breed her again next season," she argued. "This foal is worthless to us." However, the ranch owner, Gerald Hutchins, overruled the idea. His wife had recently passed away, and something about ending a life, even a potential one, felt wrong to him at that moment. "Let the foal be born," he said. So Tiny arrived on a cold February morning. Everything seemed off from the start. He was too small even for a newborn. The vet who examined him shook his head. "He's healthy, but I wouldn't invest much in this one." For the first year of his life, Tiny lived in relative obscurity. He was weaned, halter-trained, and taught basic ground manners. The ranch hands were kind to him, but none saw a future. He simply occupied space and resources that could have gone to a real prospect. 2 hands, 6 inches below the minimum considered competitive for racing. Sally Davis pushed again to sell him immediately. "Cut our losses," she said. But Gerald Hutchins, still grieving, waved her off. "Give him another year." Nothing happened. Tiny grew, but not enough. 3 hands and stopped. Vincent Mallory began training him with the other youngsters simply because he was there, but no one expected anything. For 8 months, Tiny gave them no reason to change their minds. He was calm in the gates, obedient under saddle. He would canter when asked, gallop when pressed. But that explosive speed, that raw burst of acceleration quarter horses are bred for, never appeared. He ran like a pleasure horse, smooth, steady, and utterly unremarkable. He has no fire, Vincent told the owners during a quarterly review. Nice horse, wrong discipline. Gerald Hutchins, now 76 and thinking about succession planning, finally agreed. Put him in the September auction. That decision was made on a Tuesday. On Thursday, everything changed. The ranch's top prospect, a stunning sorrel colt named Double Bar Justice, was scheduled for his first full-speed workout. Justice was everything Tiny wasn't. Tall, powerful, aggressive, worth every penny of the $300,000 Gerald had spent on his dam. He was the future of Double Bar Ranch. Leslie was assigned to pony Justice to the training track. Tiny, because he was the calmest horse on the property and had nothing better to do, was chosen as the pony horse. His job was simple. Walk alongside Justice, keep him settled, then step aside when the real horse showed his stuff. Vincent stood at the rail with his stopwatch. 2 exercise riders were mounted and ready. Justice danced and pranced, full of himself, barely controllable. Tiny walked beside him as if half asleep, completely unbothered by the colt's theatrics. They reached the gates. Leslie dismounted and unclipped Tiny's lead from Justice's bridle. The exercise rider on Justice grinned, full of confidence. "Watch this," he called to Vincent. They loaded Justice into the gates. The plan was a simple quarter-mile sprint to see what he had. Vincent raised his hand, dropped it, and the gates crashed open. Justice exploded forward with tremendous power. It was beautiful to watch, all that breeding, training, and investment unleashed in one glorious burst of speed. The exercise rider whooped. Vincent clicked his stopwatch. Leslie held her breath, and then Tiny started to run. No one had asked him to. No one had signaled or commanded or even suggested it. He was supposed to be standing quietly with Leslie, waiting to pony Justice back after the workout. But the moment those gates opened and Justice began to run, something in Tiny's brain flipped. He didn't ease into it. He didn't build speed gradually. 1 second he was standing still, the next he was running flat out, ears pinned, body low, churning up the Texas dirt with a stride frequency that seemed impossible. Leslie shouted in surprise. Vincent dropped his stopwatch. The exercise rider on Justice glanced back, his eyes wide. Tiny was chasing Justice and he was gaining. Vincent started to say, but the words died in his throat. Tiny caught Justice at the 8th pole, passed him at the 16th. 3-hand gelding that nobody wanted was a full length ahead of Double Bar Ranch's $300,000 future, and he wasn't even slowing down. Leslie finally managed to grab Tiny's trailing lead rope as he galloped past, and the sudden tension brought him to a sliding stop. He stood there, sides heaving, nostrils flared, and for the first time since anyone at Double Bar had known him, his eyes were on fire. Vincent walked slowly toward them, stopwatch dangling from his hand. His face was pale. The exercise rider trotted back looking shaken, 20 flat for the quarter. Vincent looked at the stopwatch that had timed Tiny's unexpected sprint. He stared at it, shook it as if it might be broken. 19.4, he said quietly. "That's not possible," the exercise rider said. Leslie was staring at Tiny, who had already calmed down, that familiar drowsy expression settling back over his features like a mask. But she had seen what was underneath. Now they all had. "Get Gerald on the phone," Vincent said. "Tell him not to list Tiny in that auction." Gerald Hutchins arrived at the ranch 2 hours later, moving faster than anyone had seen him move in years. Vincent met him at the training oval and explained what had happened. Then he explained it again because Gerald couldn't seem to process it. "By a full length, sir, and Tiny was running loose. No rider, no commands, nothing." Gerald turned to look at the back paddock where Tiny stood in his usual spot, grazing peacefully. Vincent pulled out his training schedule. "We figure out what makes him run." They tried everything over the next 2 weeks. Conventional training methods, different riders, different commands. Tiny would cooperate, go through the motions, but that explosive speed never reappeared. He ran like a normal, unremarkable horse, pleasant but slow. Vincent was ready to declare the justice incident a fluke, some weird one-time event. Then Leslie made a suggestion. What if he only runs when he's chasing something? That doesn't make sense, Vincent said. They tested it the next morning. They put Tiny in the gates with Justice, let them load side by side. Gerald stood at the rail with half the ranch staff, everyone wanting to see if lightning would strike twice. The gates opened. Justice surged forward with that same powerful stride, and Tiny, for 3 full seconds, did absolutely nothing. Vincent's heart sank. It had been a fluke. Then Tiny's head came up, his ears pinned flat, and he attacked the track. There was no other word for it. The little horse didn't just run, he hunted Justice down like prey. Every stride ate up ground with impossible frequency. His compact body generated power that seemed to defy physics, channeling every ounce of strength into pure forward motion. He caught Justice in 40 yards, blew past him in 50. By the wire, he was 2 lengths ahead and pulling away. The jockey on his back this time, they had put a rider on him, was laughing in disbelief. Gerald Hutchins stood at the rail with tears in his eyes. Vincent stared at his stopwatch as if it were speaking a foreign language. 19.2. In the gates with a rider, Gerald. Leslie said, still watching Tiny cool out, calm and drowsy again as if nothing had happened. Over the next month, they reverse-engineered Tiny's training. Instead of trying to make him into a conventional racehorse, they built everything around his unique trigger. Competition, they learned that he wouldn't run hard unless another horse was actively challenging him. But when that switch flipped, he was unstoppable. Word started to spread. Other trainers heard rumors about the little horse at Double Bar who could run impossible times. Some came to watch. Most left shaking their heads, unable to reconcile what they saw with everything they thought they knew about racing. But Vincent knew what he had, and in September, instead of sending Tiny to auction, he entered him in his first official race, the Texas Classic Juvenile Stakes qualifier at Lone Star Park. The racing world was about to meet Tiny, and nothing would ever be the same. The entry confirmation came back with a note from the racing secretary. "Are you sure about the measurements?" Vincent wrote back, "No error." Beatrice Coleman wasn't supposed to be at Lone Star Park that September afternoon. The 68-year-old retired trainer had driven up from Elgin, Oklahoma, just to visit her sister in Dallas. But her sister was a racing fan, and when she suggested they spend the afternoon at the track, Beatrice couldn't say no. They arrived during the 3rd race, found seats in the grandstand, and Beatrice settled in with a program and a coffee. She had been out of the training game for 2 years now, content with her small farm and quiet life. But being back at a track felt like coming home. She was halfway through the racing form when a name caught her eye. Tiny Perfect, listed in the 7th race, the Texas Classic Juvenile Stakes qualifier, 3 hands post position 4. Her sister looked over. "This horse in the 7th, he's tiny for a racehorse." They watched the races roll by, and with each one Beatrice felt that old familiar pull. The roar of the crowd, the thunder of hooves, the impossible drama of 1,200 pounds of horse and heart fighting for glory. She had missed this more than she wanted to admit. When they called the horses for the 7th race, Beatrice sat forward in her seat. Tiny walked onto the track as if half asleep next to the other horses, tall, powerful, bred specifically for this moment. He looked almost comical. The horse on his left was easily 5 inches taller. The one on his right could have stepped over him. The odds board flickered. Tiny was listed at 68 to 1. "Poor thing," Beatrice's sister said. But Beatrice was studying the little bay gelding with a trainer's eye. The way he moved, compact and efficient, the way his head stayed level and calm while other horses danced and fretted, the quiet confidence in his stride. "I don't know," Beatrice heard herself say. Her sister laughed. "Exactly." She placed her bet at the window, took her ticket and settled back into her seat. The horses were loading into the gates now. Tiny walked in calmly, no fuss, no fight. The bell rang. The gates crashed open, and Beatrice Coleman's quiet retirement ended the moment Tiny started to run. What she saw in the next 20 seconds would bring her back to training, change her life completely, and introduce her to a horse that would make her believe in magic all over again. But that part of the story was still ahead. Right now, in this moment, Tiny was just crossing the finish line 2 lengths ahead of horses worth 10 times his value. And Beatrice was on her feet screaming as if she were 20 years old again. She didn't know his story yet, didn't know about the breeding mistake, the years of dismissal, the switch that flipped when he decided to run. She just knew that she had seen something impossible, and she needed to know more. Beatrice pushed through the crowd to the winner's circle, her sister calling after her, asking what had gotten into her. She reached the rail just as Vincent Mallory was being interviewed by a track reporter, and she waited patiently until he was finished. "Excuse me," she said. "I'm Beatrice Coleman. I trained for 41 years, just retired." Vincent turned, saw an older woman with sharp eyes and a trainer's posture. Something about her made him listen. "Neither have I," he admitted. Vincent's face clouded. "That's the problem, he doesn't. Most days he won't even try." Beatrice felt that old familiar pull, the one she thought she had left behind in Oklahoma. 3 days later, she was standing in Tiny's paddock at Double Bar Ranch. Gerald Hutchins offered her a consulting position on the spot. "Help us understand this horse," he said. What Beatrice discovered over the next month changed everything. Tiny didn't respond to conventional training. He responded to real competition, legitimate challenge. The moment he sensed another horse trying to beat him, truly beat him, that switch would flip and he'd become unstoppable. "He has a champion's heart," Beatrice explained to Vincent one evening, "but he also has a champion's brain." They restructured his entire training program around this insight, made every workout a real race, varied the competition, learned to read the subtle signs that meant the switch was about to flip. And 6 weeks later, Tiny was entered in the Texas Classic Juvenile Stakes final at Lone Star Park, unable to sleep. The little horse stood calmly, that familiar drowsy expression on his face while she talked to him about what was coming. "You're going to face the best today," she said quietly. "Horses bred for this moment, worth more money than most people make in a lifetime." Tiny rested his head on her shoulder, and Beatrice felt that quiet patience radiating from him. He wasn't nervous or afraid, he was just waiting. The Texas Classic final drew 20,000 people. The paddock was packed with owners in expensive suits, trainers with championship rings, horses that moved like liquid power. 3 hands of calm determination, looking as if he had wandered in from a weekend pleasure ride. The odds board showed him at 23-1. Bobby Cordova, the jockey Vincent had hired, looked skeptical when he first saw Tiny next to the competition. "His size is going to be a problem in traffic," he warned. "Then keep him out of traffic," Beatrice said. They loaded into the gates. Tiny in post 7, surrounded by horses that towered over him. The crowd noise built to a roar. Beatrice gripped the rail so hard her knuckles went white. The bell rang. The gates crashed open. And for one terrible heartbeat, Tiny just stood there. Beatrice's stomach dropped. Not now, she thought. Please, not now. 2-hand favorite surged ahead of him and Tiny's head snapped up. The switch flipped. Bobby Cordova had ridden racehorses for 30 years. But when Tiny exploded from the gates 3 strides late, when that compact body unleashed impossible power, the veteran jockey actually gasped. Tiny didn't just run. He attacked the track with a fury that seemed to defy physics. His stride frequency was insane. Each tiny step perfect, efficient, channeling every ounce of power into forward motion. He caught the back of the pack in 30 yards, blew through the middle in 40. By the 8th pole, he was 4th and closing on the leaders as if they were standing still. At the 16th pole, he pulled even with Tres Champion. At the wire, he was half a length ahead. The crowd erupted. Beatrice collapsed against the rail, sobbing. 0 seconds flat, the fastest juvenile quarter at Lone Star Park in 11 years. The offers came immediately. $5,750,000, $1 million. Gerald Hutchins turned them all down. Tiny stays here, he said firmly. Over the next 18 months, Tiny raced 9 more times, won 6, placed twice, took third once when he stumbled. He set records at 3 tracks and earned over $600,000 in purses. But more than the money, more than the records, he changed the sport. Trainers started looking at smaller horses differently. Heart over height became more than a saying, it became a philosophy. And Beatrice Coleman, who thought her training days were over, found herself consulting for horses that didn't fit the mold, helping trainers see potential everyone else missed. These days, Tiny is retired at Double Bar Ranch. Beatrice visits every week, brings him apples, tells him stories, and sometimes when the light is right, she'll whisper, "You brought me back." Tiny will rest his head on her shoulder and breathe softly, that same patience, that same quiet knowing. Gerald Hutchins is 80 now, moving slower but still sharp. He has made one thing clear. Tiny stays at Double Bar as long as he lives, then passes to Leslie Crane, who is now head of breeding operations. "Some horses you own," Gerald said recently. "Some horses own you." Vincent Mallory tells every young trainer who will listen, look past the obvious. And when they ask how he knew Tiny was special, he's honest. "I didn't," he says. "Not until he proved me wrong." The racing world changed because of Tiny. Not completely, not overnight, but enough. Three-hand gelding who rewrote the rules. They say quarter horses are measured by their speed, but maybe the real measure is something different. Tiny was worth nothing the day they almost sold him. Today, his bloodline is priceless. But if you ask anyone at Double Bar Ranch what he's really worth, they'll tell you the same thing. He taught them that the greatest champions don't always look like champions, not until the moment they decide to run. And sometimes that moment is worth waiting for. If Tiny's story inspired you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and become part of our community. We share amazing horse tales every week, stories of courage, redemption, and champions who defied the odds. Leave a comment below about an underdog you've known, and share this video with someone who needs a reminder that size is just a number, but heart is everything. Star Park in 11 years. The offers came immediately, $5,750,000, $1 million. Gerald Hutchins turned them all down. Tiny stays here, he said firmly, with the people who learned to believe in him. Over the next 18 months, Tiny raced 9 more times, won 6, placed twice, took third once when he stumbled. He set records at 3 tracks and earned over $600,000 in purses. But more than the money, more than the records, he changed the sport. Trainers started looking at smaller horses differently. Heart over height became more than a saying, it became a philosophy. And Beatrice Coleman, who thought her training days were over, found herself consulting for horses that didn't fit the mold, helping trainers see potential everyone else missed. These days, Tiny is retired at Double Bar Ranch. Beatrice visits every week, brings him apples, tells him stories, and sometimes when the light is right, she'll whisper, "You brought me back. Reminded me why I fell in love with this sport." Tiny will rest his head on her shoulder and breathe softly, that same patience, that same quiet knowing. Gerald Hutchins is 80 now, moving slower but still sharp. He has made one thing clear. Tiny stays at Double Bar as long as he lives, then passes to Leslie Crane, who is now head of breeding operations. "Some horses you own," Gerald said recently. "Some horses own you." Tiny taught me the difference. Vincent Mallory tells every young trainer who will listen, look past the obvious, believe in horses that don't fit the mold. And when they ask how he knew Tiny was special, he's honest. "I didn't," he says. "Not until he proved me wrong." That's the lesson. The racing world changed because of Tiny. Not completely, not overnight, but enough. Every season now, somewhere in the Southwest, a trainer takes a chance on a small horse with a big heart, remembering the 14-point three-hand gelding who rewrote the rules. They say quarter horses are measured by their speed, but maybe the real measure is something different. Maybe it's about the people who see past the tape measure, who recognize fire when everyone else sees sleep, who stand beside us and whisper, "I know what you are." Tiny was worth nothing the day they almost sold him. Today, his bloodline is priceless, but if you ask anyone at Double Bar Ranch what he's really worth, they'll tell you the same thing. He taught them that the greatest champions don't always look like champions, not until the moment they decide to run. And sometimes that moment is worth waiting for. If Tiny's story inspired you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and become part of our community. We share amazing horse tales every week, stories of courage, redemption, and champions who defied the odds. Leave a comment below about an underdog you've known, and share this video with someone who needs a reminder that size is just a number, but heart is everything.